Kiki Camarena. On February 7, 1985, Kiki went out to have lunch with his wife. Mexican intelligence officers approached him. Kiki trusted them because they were on the same side of the law. Theoretically. In practice, they worked for the cartel. He was shoved into a car. Usually, a kidnapping is short, ransom, or the end. But cartel bosses Rafael Caro Quintero and Felix Gallardo didn't want money. They wanted to talk. And this is where the real nightmare begins. The cartel hired Dr. Humberto Alvarez Machain. His job was not to heal, but to keep Kiki conscious. Imagine your body screams, "Enough. I'm shutting down." But the good doctor injects you with a potent dose of amphetamines to drag you back to reality. This went on for over 30 hours. They broke his ribs, jaw, drilled into his skull, and every time he drifted into oblivion, medicine brought him back to hell. When Kiki's body was finally found, DEA agents were so furious they launched Operation Leyenda. It was the largest homicide investigation in DEA history. They literally turned Mexico upside down, caught the cartel bosses, and even kidnapped that doctor to the US for trial. Kiki's story showed that cartels can use doctors as torture weapons. But if you make the gringos angry enough, the consequences will be global. El Pozolero. Let's move to the 2000s. The war between the Tijuana cartel and the Sinaloa cartel was at its peak. There were so many bodies that the bosses faced a logistical crisis. Graveyards attract attention. Holes in the desert are dug up by coyotes. They needed people to disappear without a trace, literally evaporate. They needed a disposal specialist. Meet Santiago Meza Lopez, better known as El Pozolero, or the stew maker. The scariest thing about him was his normality. He had a family, was building a house, went to church. He wasn't a hitman, he was a cleaner. For $600 a week, he went to a remote ranch called the Chicken Coop and did his dirty work. Only instead of chickens, there were cartel enemies. His recipe was simple and terrible. 2 big barrels, water, and caustic soda. He boiled this stew for 24 hours. Chemistry did its job. Flesh, muscles, and organs turned into a murky liquid. He crushed the remaining teeth and nails with a hammer and buried them. When asked what he felt, he replied, "Nothing. It was just a job." The complete lack of empathy is scarier than the acid itself. When he was arrested in 2009, police thought he got rid of a dozen people. Lopez calmly corrected them. 300 people. A whole battalion dissolved in barrels. Relatives of the missing still come to that ranch to stick poles in the ground, hoping to find any DNA remains. But thanks to the stew maker, nothing remains there but chemically soaked earth. La violencia. And finally, a fashion history that will make you sick. The Colombian necktie. Many attribute this to Pablo Escobar, but the roots go deeper, into La Violencia, the Colombian Civil War of the 50s. Back then, liberals and conservatives hated each other so much that just killing an enemy wasn't enough. You had to humiliate them, turn their death into a message for the whole village. The technique was barbaric. A deep horizontal cut was made right under the victim's chin, often post-mortem, but not always. Then, the tongue was pulled out through this hole, left hanging on the chest. It created a grotesque imitation of a tie. Why? To show complete contempt. It said, "We got him, and we can do whatever we want with him." It was visual terrorism. Later, in the 70s and 80s, drug cartels adopted this tactic. Pablo Escobar and other barons realized, fear sells better than discounts. If a farmer refuses to sell land for a lab, and the next day finds his brother wearing a tie, he doesn't call the police. He packs his bags and leaves. The necktie became a seal of silence. It was a way of governing the population without saying a single word. El Tehuacanazo. Have you ever drunk soda so fast that the bubbles hit your nose? Unpleasant, right? Now imagine that's your last problem. Cartels invented an interrogation method called El Tehuacanazo. It's named after a popular brand of Mexican mineral water. It sounds like a TikTok challenge, but trust me, you don't want to participate. The cocktail recipe is simple. Take highly carbonated water and add chili powder. The victim is tied up, head tilted back, and this mixture is poured directly into the nostrils. The carbon dioxide expands inside the sinuses, creating the sensation that your head is about to explode while the chili burns the membranes. This causes an instant drowning sensation, but without water in the lungs. The pain is so sharp and disorienting that people confess to killing Kennedy within 30 seconds. The scariest part for cartels is that it's a clean method. No bruises, no broken bones. You just walk out with the cleanest nose in the world and a broken psyche. The human pinata. Mexican culture gave the world world, the pinata, a toy filled with candy that you break with a stick. Cartels, with their twisted sense of humor, adapted this tradition. Only there is no candy inside. The pinata method is used when someone needs to be punished for theft or betrayal, but kept alive, for now. The victim is suspended by their feet from the ceiling. First, blood rushes to the head, which is torture in itself after 20 minutes. Second, you become a helpless target. Cartel members take turns coming up with bats or sticks. It's a sort of corporate game for stress relief. The goal is to break ribs, arms, or legs, but not to kill. It's called an educational process. After such a party, the person might just be dumped at a hospital with a note. Next time, don't steal gas. It is brutal pedagogy. Pain is remembered better than verbal warnings. The enslaved engineers. We are used to cartels kidnapping competitors, but in 2012, Los Zetas started hunting for nerds. They needed communication engineers and network architects. Why? To build their own internet. The cartel created a hidden radio network covering all of Mexico to communicate without police wiretapping. These engineers were taken to the mountains. They were forced to build towers, install repeaters, and configure encryption at gunpoint. It was genuine high-tech slavery. The network was so advanced that even the army couldn't hack it. It was a dark net, but in the real world, built by the hands of kidnapped students. When the army finally started finding these towers, they destroyed hundreds of stations. But the most tragic part is the fate of the engineers. Many were never found. Cartels treat specialists as expendable material. Fix the tower? We don't need you anymore. The gladiator brawls, Bus 193. And now the scariest part, psychological violence. In 2011, the Los Zetas cartel started stopping intercity buses heading to the US border. They pulled out passengers, migrants, workers, students. Women and the elderly were let go, while young men were gathered in a circle. They were offered a job, but the interview was specific. The cartel needed new hitmen, the most brutal and ruthless ones. They gave the captives sledgehammers or machetes and gave an ultimatum: fight or die. Friends, brothers, or just fellow travelers were forced to fight each other to the death. These were modern gladiator fights organized by bored psychopaths. The winner received life and a job in the cartel. The loser went into those same acid barrels we talked about earlier. This broke the human psyche forever. The survivor, having killed his friend to save himself, would never be a normal human again. He becomes the perfect soldier, dead inside. This is the highest form of cruelty, forcing the victim to become the executioner. The forbidden donut. The technique is simple. Tires are placed on the victim to block their arms. You turn into a rubber nesting doll. You can't run, you can't scratch your nose, and then the secret ingredient is added. We'll call it extra spicy salsa, though actually it's diesel. When the tire is lit, the rubber doesn't just burn, it melts. It's like napalm that you can't shake off. The process lasts up to 20 minutes. It sends a very clear signal to everyone around: don't work with the competition. YouTube forbids me from showing details, but let's just say after this you become very well done.